Rush is one of those bands that never really stood still. Through the 70s and 80s, they evolved from a complex progressive rock band to this radio-friendly power trio with massive hits like Tom Sawyer and Limelight. But by the mid-90s, the musical world had changed, grunge had come and gone, alternative rock was king, and progressive rock, well, wasn't exactly fashionable anymore. In 1996, Rush released Test for Echo. Their 16th studio album came out 3 years after Counterparts, and that's an album that was praised for bringing back that raw power of their early years while embracing a heavier, more guitar-driven sound. Fans wondered, could this album, Test for Echo, keep up that momentum, or was this the moment that Rush began to feel out of sync with the times? Today we're going to dive into the sound, the song, and the musical landscape that surrounded Test for Echo, and we're going to see if it still holds up nearly 30 years later. To understand Test for Echo, you have to consider where Rush was in 1996. They were entering their third decade as a band, something few rock acts could claim, but the world around them had changed drastically. The early 90s had seen a massive shift in rock. Songs like Alice in Chains' Man in the Box reshaped what heavy and authentic meant. Rush, who had always balanced technical mastery with introspection, suddenly existed in a world that valued raw emotion over precision. Bands like Tool were the new thinking man's rock band. Dream Theater had taken over the prog metal niche. And the mainstream, it had moved on to simpler, grittier expressions of angst and identity. Yet Rush never really followed trends. They adapted, but they always did it their way. After the organic, guitar-heavy Counterparts, which flirted with grunge-inspired textures, Test for Echo arrived with a more polished and introspective tone. It wasn't a sellout record, nor was it a return to old-school prog. It was something else, an album made by veteran musicians looking inward, both sonically and lyrically. And now, after this, I want to talk about the production, because they decided to do something different, and they didn't really make a Counterparts Part 2. From the opening title track, Test for Echo, it's clear that Rush wanted to make something crisp and modern. The production, handled once again by Peter Collins, has that clean mid-90s rock sheen. Everything is clear and separated in the mix. Neil Peart's drums sound sharp and snappy. Geddy Lee's bass cuts with authority, and Alex Lifeson's guitars shimmer with a variety of tones, from crunch to ambient textures. But compared to Counterparts, which had more grit and urgency, Test for Echo feels more measured and more restrained. The band seems less interested in power and more focused on space. There's a balance between heavy moments and reflective passages that gives the album a certain maturity. One thing that stands out is Neil Peart's drumming. This was his last album before he took a break after a personal tragedy, and his performance is remarkable. His playing is intricate, but it serves the songs beautifully. He was also working with drum coach Freddie Gruber at the time, and you can really hear the shift in his feel. There's this looser, jazzier swing in his phrasing. Geddy's vocals are in a comfortable mid-range here, less high-pitched than the 80s, with a more natural, warm tone. His bass work, as always, is exceptional, locking in perfectly with Neil's rhythmic complexity. And Alex Lifeson, he is the glue. His guitar textures, from ringing open chords to distorted riffs and atmospheric leads, give the album its emotional weight. The sound of Test for Echo isn't revolutionary. It's not meant to be. Instead, it's confident, layered, and deeply reflective. It's the sound of a band that knows exactly who they are. I'll be discussing the songs next, and the album might not be filled with hits, but there are some standout tracks here, including a song about dogs. Let's break down some of the key tracks. Test for Echo opens the record with one of Rush's strongest late period songs. It's catchy yet cerebral, with lyrics that explore communication and authenticity in an age of media noise, a theme that feels even more relevant today. The riff is classic Lifeson, angular but melodic, with Peart driving the rhythm forward in a complex but fluid patterns. It's a fantastic opener that sets the tone for what follows. Then comes Driven, one of the album's highlights. This track has a muscular, almost aggressive bass line that Geddy uses to propel the song. It's tight, energetic, very much in line with a heavy approach from Counterparts. The lyrics play on the idea of control, who's driving, who's being driven, and it mirrors Rush's constant push and pull between freedom and discipline. It's easily one of the most underrated 90s songs. Half the World follows a very different feel. It's melodic, catchy, and has that universal theme Rush does so well, examining humanity's contradictions. Half the World hates what Half the World does. It's philosophical without being pretentious, a trademark of Neil Peart's writing. The song's folk-like structure and clean production make it one of the album's more accessible moments. The Color of Right continues in that reflective mode. It's not a standout for everyone, but it's a solid mid-tempo rocker with strong performances across the board. There's something comfortable about it, a band relaxed in its maturity. Time and Motion takes things in a heavier direction again. This is where Lifeson's guitar really shines, with crunchy riffs and odd time signatures that harken back to their progressive roots. It's complex, muscular, one of the most technical tracks here. Geddy's vocals soar over the instrumental backdrop, giving it that classic Rush drama. Totem brings in one of the album's more interesting lyrical ideas, spirituality and belief systems. Neil Peart, who has spent many years exploring humanism and philosophy, uses vivid imagery to question faith and meaning. Musically, it's dynamic and full of personality, showing Rush's ability to handle heavy concepts with humor and wit. Then there's that song I was hinting at before called Dog Years. This one kind of divides fans. Some like it, some don't. It's playful, fast, almost punk rock, kind of tongue-in-cheek. The lyrics are about comparing the life to dog years, and it's kind of a quirky song, but not everyone's cup of tea. It kind of shows that even in their 40s, Rush weren't afraid to just do something a little different and have some fun. Resist is one of the album's emotional peaks. Stripped back and heartfelt, it foreshadows the acoustic flavor Rush will later explore on Vapor Trails and in their live performances. The lyrics are beautiful, about resilience, inner strength, and choosing integrity over compromise. It's a reminder of how poetic Neil Peart could be when writing from the heart. Limbo is an instrumental. While not as iconic as YYZ or La Via Strangiato, it's a fun, quirky jam with plenty of rhythmic shifts. You can feel the chemistry between the three musicians here. It's relaxed, playful, and deeply satisfying. Finally, the album closes with Carve Away the Stone. It's a fitting ending, philosophical, melodic, and reflective. Peart compares self-improvement to sculpting marble, urging the listener to carve away the stone to reveal what's inside. It's an uplifting, poetic closer that captures Rush's enduring message of self-discovery. Now, after this, I want to discuss how they were competing with some of the new bands that are on the scene in the mid-90s. By 1996, rock world was in a transition again. Grunge was fading. Post-grunge bands like Foo Fighters, Bush, and Our Lady Peace were taking over. Alternative metal acts like Tool and Deftones were experimenting with texture and dynamics. Meanwhile, progressive rock was kind of underground, with a few exceptions like Porcupine Tree gaining some traction. In that climate, Test for Echo didn't make a huge commercial splash. It peaked at number 5 on the Billboard 200, which is impressive, but it didn't really produce any major hits. The tour that followed was strong, but soon after, Rush took a break due to Neil Peart's devastating personal losses. I'll speak more about that in a different video, maybe the next one. But that's part of what makes Test for Echo feel like an emotional time capsule. It's the last Rush album, before Tragedy, before Rebirth, before Vapor Trails. It captures a band at a creative and personal crossroads. Still sharp, still evolving, but also introspective, and perhaps a little weary. It's also one of the most underrated records in terms of musicianship. While it doesn't have the flashiness of Moving Pictures or the raw energy of Counterparts, the precision and nuance are stunning. It's mature, Rush, refined, thoughtful, and quietly powerful. But now we get to the end. I'm going to answer the question that I posed in the beginning. So nearly 3 decades later, does Test per Echo hold up? In a word, yes, but it depends on what you're listening for. If you're looking for a raw, adventurous spirit of 1970s Rush, you're not going to find it here. It's not 2112, it's not Hemispheres. If you want that synth-driven grandeur of the 80s era, that's not here either. But if you want to hear three master musicians exploring their craft with honesty and restraint, Test per Echo rewards repeat listens. Production might sound a little too clean for today's standards. Some tracks might feel understated compared to the emotional punch of Vapor Trails, but the album's lyrical depth and musicianship are timeless. Let me know your thoughts below. Check out my review of Counterparts, which I did not too long ago. Please like this video, helps me with the YouTube algorithm. Please subscribe. If you have not already, I do rock and metal reviews, rankings, and more. Thanks for watching. I will see you in the next one.